Samira smiled. And together, we build something stronger than either of us could alone. Forging the future. The agreement was struck. Over the next few months, trade routes were established. New Atlanta sent engineers to Havenfield, constructing steam-powered irrigation systems, grain mills, and defenses. In return, shipments of wheat, vegetables, and livestock flowed into New Atlanta, allowing it to expand further. Havenfield's guards were trained to use new steam-powered weapons, and the two settlements began working together to clear the surrounding land of raiders. For the first time since the collapse, unity was forming. Samira stood at the edge of Havenfield one evening, watching as steam-powered plows tilled the soil. She could hardly believe how far they had come. Eleanor stepped up beside her. "You did it," she said. "You turned a dying world into something worth living in." Samira shook her head. "We did it. And we're not done yet. Because the world was still broken. But with every machine built, every alliance formed. They were proving that humanity wasn't finished. They were just getting started." The purists strike back. New Atlanta and Havenfield flourished under their alliance, growing stronger with every passing month. Steam-powered machines tilled the fields. Fortified walls stood unyielding, and trade routes brought prosperity. But peace was never meant to last. One evening, as Samira oversaw the construction of an upgraded rail system between the two settlements, a scout rode in at full speed, his face pale with exhaustion. "They're coming," he gasped. "The purists." A full assault. The settlement erupted into action. Defenses were manned, steam-powered turrets were primed, and guards took their positions. Samira and Eleanor rushed to the command tower, where they could see torches flickering in the distance, moving like a river of fire. Hundreds of purists, clad in scavenged armor, marched toward New Atlanta, shouting their war cry. But something was different. In the distance, massive mechanical constructs moved alongside their war machines powered by engines that should not have existed. Samira's heart pounded. The purists had steam power. A spy among them. Days before the attack, a man named Jonah Ward, a former soldier and expert scout, had volunteered for a dangerous mission to infiltrate the purists' stronghold. Dressed in tattered clothes, with dirt smeared on his face, he approached one of their outposts, feigning desperation. The purists welcomed him, eager for new recruits. Jonah played the role well, listening, observing. What he discovered shook him to his core. The purists weren't just scavengers rejecting technology. They were using it. Deep within their fortress, hidden among ruins of an old industrial plant, they had built their own steam-powered war machines, tanks of iron and brass, flamethrowers powered by pressurized fuel, and even primitive airships that could drop firebombs. And worst of all, they weren't just coming for New Atlanta, they were planning to take all of Georgia. Jonah had barely escaped, stealing a horse and riding through the night to warn the settlements. But it might have been too late. The battle for Georgia. The first wave of purists clashed against New Atlanta's walls. Bullets and arrows rained down, met by steam-powered turrets that spat fire and lead. The settlement's defenses held firm, but the enemy was relentless. Then, the war machines arrived. A towering steam-powered battering ram, covered in metal plates, rolled toward the gates, its gears grinding as it picked up speed. Boom! The first impact shook the walls. Cracks formed in the reinforced steel. Samira ran to the command post. "We need to hit them before they break through," she shouted. Eleanor nodded. "We still have the explosives from the rail project. We use them now, or we lose everything." Samira and a team of engineers loaded makeshift steam-powered rocket, crude but effective, onto a launch rig. The first projectile screamed through the air, slamming into the battering ram, engulfing it in flames. The machine groaned. its gears seizing before it collapsed in a heap of twisted metal. But the battle was far from over. From the sky, a Purist airship appeared, its massive propellers humming as it hovered over the city. From its belly, firebombs rained down, setting buildings ablaze. Havenfield's reinforcements arrived just in time. Steam-powered carriages, modified into war machines, barreled into the Purist ranks, cutting them down with mounted cannons. Soldiers fought hand-to-hand, steam rifles and crossbows clashing with Purist blades. Samira saw a chance. If they could disable the airship, they could turn the tide. She and a team of engineers hijacked a steam locomotive, loading it with explosives. With a final prayer, they sent it barreling down the tracks, launching it off a ramp, straight into the airship. Boom! The explosion lit up the night sky, sending burning debris raining down on the battlefield. Victory, but at a cost. By dawn, the battle was over. The Purists, their machines destroyed, retreated into the wilderness. New Atlanta and Havenfield had won. But they had paid the price. Fires still burned, their people wounded, buildings damaged. Samira stood at the ruins of the airship, watching the smoke curl into the sky. "They'll be back," she said. "And stronger." Eleanor stepped beside her, her expression grim. "Then we'll be ready." Jonah approached, still bruised from his escape. "The Purists are bigger than we thought. They have hidden factories. More machines, more soldiers. This was just the first wave." Samira clenched her fists. If the Purists wanted a war, they were going to get one. But this time, she wasn't just going to defend. She was going to take the fight to them. Captured by the Purists. Samira knew the risk was high. But if they didn't strike first, the Purists would return with an even larger force. So, against Eleanor's cautious warnings, she led a team of elite engineers, fighters, and her best scout, Jonah, deep into Purist territory. The plan was simple: sabotage their factories, cripple their war machines, and weaken their forces before they could attack again. But things went wrong, very wrong. As soon as they reached the outskirts of the Purist stronghold, they realized they had walked into a trap. Spotters had seen them coming. And before they could retreat, floodlights blazed to life, and 100 armed Purists surrounded them. "Drop your weapons," a voice called. Samira clenched her jaw but complied, knowing there was no way out yet. Jonah, her best soldier, and several engineers were taken captive. They were bound in chains and dragged toward the heart of the Purist stronghold. A repurposed industrial city teeming with war machines, factories, and soldiers. It was worse than she had imagined. The Purists' offer. Locked in a cold, steel-lined cell, Samira's mind raced. She had to find a way out before the Purists extracted information from them. After hours of waiting, the door creaked open. A man strode in, General Isaac Kane, the ruthless leader of the Purists. He was older, grizzled, and wore a mix of old military gear and scavenged armor. "You should have stayed in New Atlanta," he said, pacing in front of Samira. "You and your machines have corrupted what little humanity we had left." Samira held his gaze. "You use machines too, Kane. You're no different from us." He smirked. "The difference is that we control technology, we don't let it control us. Your kind wants to bring back the old world. I won't let that happen." Kane leaned in. "Here's the deal, Samira. You build for us. You make machines for our army, and I'll let your people live." Samira spat on the ground between them. "I'd rather die." Kane chuckled and straightened. "Oh, I expected that." He turned to the guards. "Take her to the factory. Let her see what happens to those who refuse."